when we're talking about personal items, we're also talking about sentimental items that have great value, you know. But as well, we did have items that had great value, like our MacBook Pro Max that I bought from the Apple Store online. So it didn't have a printed receipt from the company, but did have a Visa statement that shows the purchase. So, and it says Apple on it, so unmistakable. There was a couple other purchases that was related to it that brought the price from about 9,300 and then another 400 tacked on. So that's why I say close to about $10,000 just for that alone. But personal items, like if I'm going to list everything right now, I suppose we could get into that. I want to tell you kind of the span of everything, and then we can kind of get back into details afterwards, after you hear what happened. Because when our stuff was all taken, and this includes jewelry, like jewels and coins and stuff, that's again, like the Prince Charles and Diana wedding, 1981, and the silver jubilee, silver dollar, because that's like an ounce of silver, but it's like commemorative. Little details like that, naming everything would take quite a long time, considering that, yeah, there are items that are irreplaceable. But along with the items are last year's tax forms that had like our SIN numbers, and so yeah, identity theft, our bank information, our Visa statements, all have the codes on the bills and stuff. All of our paperwork was taken, for the most part, all of it, but there was a little bit left. Our receipts for the cameras were included in some of the stuff that was taken. So you see, there was a lot of stuff that didn't need to get removed, because by the time I got home, the place looked like it was gutted. And after a couple of days, some more things kept on disappearing, and it wasn't very good. Like some gym bags and whatnot, designer ones that had gotten just saved up for Alice and I, because she deserves good things because of what type of experience that she's had in the past. If she ever got a chance to explain it, she told me on camera before. I recorded it because I knew there would come a day. I knew there would come a day that this all had to be described and explained. So yeah, speaking for her and speaking for us both, because she got threatened with eviction if she didn't sign an end tenancy agreement. And they came straight to the hospital in RCH, which is from Vancouver through Burnaby, and then you reach New Westminster, but you keep going, and it's almost at Coquitlam. So that much of a distance. They came over, and they hadn't made entry yet, because that's the thing about Alice's dad and Frank Warren Burton showing up like before the mattress was removed, meaning that their method of getting us to pay for the locksmith, because they needed in to get the bed that they promised they were going to replace, which was the reason why I kind of went along with it. But the thing is, my key would have opened the door just fine if they waited for me to come home like within that week. But it seemed like a big rush. Like they had to scam everything they could before I got home. It's like they didn't know that I wasn't here until they tried making some type of entry. Now, if the entry was originally, because Alice's parents wanted in, when we got this apartment, we were escaping horrible parental abuse, and it was our refuge. And we were promised that they would not be allowed to come around or in our apartment, especially when we weren't there. And this is exactly what happened. For them to be such a level of parental abuse that they had somehow like colluded or paid off or promised that the staff here that they could have our stuff, or if they took it, we don't know. But the BC Housing was involved with letting them in, which they shouldn't have. And Igor promises. So when Igor stopped working here and Michael Hood came in, things got a little bit worse, because it seemed like that's when we began experiencing the foot torching, and we were experiencing the feeling of something liquid pouring on our heads. So looked into it and found out online it meant permeable liquids. Now, I'm not saying it was formaldehyde, but that is an example of a permeable liquid. What does permeability mean? It means it can pass through solid objects, like, say, gas and whatnot, or high pressure, whatever. If you're to spray, say, dry ice blast, which they use in hazmat, up against wall, you're going to feel it on the other side. That's a fact. If you are, say, welding or anything like that, this would be directed heat, Now, to put it into a comparison of where they would have learned these methods, if someone told you that there was some show where it explained all of this, where they had a heat coil underneath the Bible so when the person put their hand on to swear to the Bible, it would, sizzle in a cook, and they would, be getting afraid if they were guilty. And they'd also have heat coils and like heat guns underneath the person's feet that they controlled when and how much heat to apply to get the type of reaction they wanted. Now, if that is what takes place inside a courtroom where these things are learned, then we really have to see the seriousness of the situation. Because, for one thing, lasers have been around for many, many, many years, but the prohibited ones are above 20 joules. 20 joules would cause an injury with a heat laser, for instance, because if people are bringing those into courtrooms and kind of irritating people by hitting them with it occasionally, making someone itch their nose or that grazes their ear. This is some type of control, like an MK Ultra situation, which this really shouldn't take place. And to make you aware of it, that some of the criminals this has been practiced on have learned how to do this type of thing and have gone full out on it. Because I myself, I'm covered in injuries that I've been trying to sterilize and heal using methods of just good health, like taking a bunch of salt and drinking a bunch of milk. So you have that sodium calcium reaction that is all about our immune system. So anyway, as I described, if you would only think, what type of show was that? As I said, videos described as well. So I'll include all of that type of thing. So, but yeah, I sustained injuries. The physician at the hospital described it as lacerations, which went, neglected, medical neglect, which that's a, law term for deserves to be sued, and that's what we're here for. There's a lot of medical injuries taking place. In fact, when we take a look at what happened with my best friend Goran, he actually was complaining about it being too high dose for them to lower it, and they jacked it up, and now he's dead. And that was right before the pandemic, and right after I'd won a review panel then. But I won a review panel that I filed in February, right after getting out of the hospital. And I'd won that because the doctor was caught lying about the medication, lying about the effects of it, lying about that in front of the panel of judges who knew better and knew that something was definitely not right. And, I did have an opportunity to go tugboat chefing, but the problem is, that tugboat, it didn't work. It got sabotaged, is what we're told. That someone put a bunch of sugar in the gas tank. He had to get new, well, I'm not a mechanic. The cylinders, big cylinders, but new engine basically. The whole thing is seized up. So when he said that it would be, ready, and I already had these court cases in place, so I wasn't able to go out for, the work that I was hoping to get this year. But speaking of losing money on work, the business tools, the laptop and the cameras and such, because those were my business tools, I was unable to work for that entire time, meaning that the opportunities that I missed from being able to event document like weddings and such, or event document at shows, music shows, theater shows, wherever permitted, live festivals and such. That was what I was doing before the pandemic, and having to learn so much just to try and save Alice, because she's number one in my world, and I love her, and it's been a total nightmare. Considering that as soon as I began asking about what happened to our stuff, there was a investigation, a BC Housing investigation, where I was supposed to hear back from. But as soon as I started asking about that and requested that my toilet got unplugged, then I started experiencing problems with BC Housing. Now, see, in March, we had requested that BC Housing inform the hospital that she was not evicted, that she could return. But then the hospital didn't really have an email for that to receive. So we were hoping that we could get it ourselves to give to them, because we could print it off or whatever, make it a physical copy. But Michael Ho refused to give any information like that. He was very secretive about everything. It seemed very strange. Didn't know what to think about that at that point, though. But when I began asking more about the investigation later on, all of a sudden, this new, maybe he isn't new, but I have never seen him before. They called him Merritt, but someone tried telling me it was Mike Savick, but I thought Mike Savick was the little bald guy that wears camouflage and talks about hunting all the time. Anyway, whoever the building manager actually is at this place, they should probably make it more public and more accessible to be in contact with them, because they don't seem very communicative. Because when I thought I was going to get my toilet fixed in August, and the guy Merritt shows up, and he seemed pretty mad. Like he'd seen the toilet, and he just, I wanted him to fix it. He began complaining about it, and he wrote in his report something about there being animal poo on it when the toilet was just full. There was no poo on it, on top of the toilet. So, and I don't have any pets, so it just kind of points out what type of childish imagery this guy hallucinates to get out of doing something for the people who are paying rent here that he's actually supposed to be working for and not against. But anyway, he began doing a second yearly inspection report, and these inspection reports are usually done yearly. That's what makes them annually. So when he began doing that, I thought it very strange, but he began writing horrible reviews, saying the walls were from 1 to 4, a 4. In other words, completely destroyed, because this happened to have been a damage report. And he tried describing the stove as being, again, completely destroyed, needed so much maintenance and repair that it might as well be replaced, and trying to get me to pay for it in the following letter. That before that letter, I'd gotten a letter that wanted to raise the rent. The rent raisal had come in right on the 13th of August, and it's wanted to go from up to now 453. I'm not sure what I'm paying right now, but I thought it was in the 300s, and that's well over the percentage that's allowed of 3% increase. So this is what I mean. It followed the second yearly report, which on this yearly report it says that I have a kitchen fan, and I got a 2. So the kitchen fan was damaged. However, on the first report, it clearly says NA. There is no kitchen fan, and you can clearly see there's no kitchen fan. There's not even a fan in the bathroom. Thank you. There is no fan here. But like I said, weaponized delirium. He hallucinated a fan in the kitchen that happened to be so damaged that it required 2. So, noticeable. When we're talking about sink counter traps in the kitchen, 2, okay. Cupboards, drawers in the kitchen, a 3. That's pretty damaged. That's like saying that's a Rottweiler chewed on it, but it still opens and closes, but you know what I mean? Or maybe doors broken off, or it doesn't, well, anyway, it describes fire damage, basically, all of this, especially when the common items, meaning the living room, the paint gets a 4, which would relate to absolute vandalism, like spray painting, and, how else could of a 1 to 4, you got 4 on the paint. The flooring, a 4, again, describes it being gouged out and it damaged. This is a damage report after all. Doors, closet, 3. Fixtures, outlets, 3. Where he was giving me a hard time about the TELUS outlets, that the TELUS guy had left a little crook open because he was going to have my cable fixed, and it took a while for the cable to get completely sorted out, but now I have that. I don't believe I've watched any television at all, but it's good to have cable. And here it also says smoke detector, a 2. That means it's been damaged, and the heat and hot water, a 2. Is he saying something about the entire building in itself? Like there's a problem with the heat and hot water? Okay, well, this is what I mean. The cupboards are fine, and I could clearly show in videos, no problem. Disprove everything on that paper so bad. But the thing is, though, when I had tried addressing my concerns that if that damage report was to stay affixed to my rental housing record, that I'd never see the day that I ever got to live in a rude situation where I had, in other words, be homeless for the rest of my life, because I wouldn't be able to rent anywhere if that type of garbage was believed by anyone. And believe me, if I don't clear this and make this obvious, that this was an attempt at my life. Considering that when I had addressed my concerns, I get a final warning letter, and it's that's a threat. That's an actual written threat that you can clearly see, because and there's no previous warnings either. That's the thing. When saying that personal items, food scraps scattered all throughout the unit's floor was complete and total garbage, because there was no food scraps. He would have said what type of food it was, but he didn't take any photographs either. Debris and animal waste found splattered all over toilet and flooring. Then that again, horrific lie, just weaponized delirium, a hallucination that he made up because the kitchen and sink area full of cigarette butts, dirty containers, and brine. Well, to describe that properly, yes, there was an ashtray that was in there, and I placed in it. It wasn't doing anything wrong. The place, it was a little bit grimy, but I just have to wash these containers, he says, which are, the dishes themselves. So look at the criticality of it, okay? I'm getting threats over this. And he's saying the rental unit overall is extremely unsanitary and admits a foul odor. Well, that's coming from the toilet that I asked him to unplug, and he had ignored that for a month. And whenever I came back to ask again about it or address these hate mail letters of threats, then I get told that I'm the one who's threatening. If I point out simple facts like, you're a crook, you should go to jail, you're probably going to get deported, you tell them, right? And, I think deportation would actually be one of the best things for someone who comes to this country and doesn't play right, because like all their friends and family and all that stuff, that's back home where they came from. And if they do that type of stuff there, maybe that's why they don't want to go back, is they burned every bridge and like pissed off all the people. So you got to look at it that way. It's, how could home be unwelcoming? So if they're doing this type of thing here, so something that we're going to have to address, obviously, because when we're talking about some type of punishment, where we are trying to avoid the whole punishing thing, there's always, Antarctica, box factory, for anyone who's, being totally facing the golden rule, after all, like threatening eviction and all that type of stuff, and deportation being pretty much the same thing, but deportation being there's a home to go back to, home where you came from, and the eviction note of it, that's the same as any banishment to Antarctica, I suppose, especially in the winters here in Canada, where if you're sleeping on a sidewalk in a big ice puddle, like you're not going to live all that long. You have to admit, now. That's kind of the thing that they had planned for me by telling their lies to cover for the stuff they stole. And they continued sending me threatening letters of hate mail, where, in fact, one of them had completely amazed me. It actually said on it, violence means the attempted or actual exercise by a person other than the worker, meaning that, they're kind of excluding the worker from, and includes any threatening statement or behavior which gives the worker reasonable cause to believe he or she is at risk of injury. Well, what about the person? They didn't include the person there, because if they're saying that violence and threats are disallowed except other than the worker, the worker's allowed to do it, because what we see here is a whole bunch of hate mail and threats, especially when it's revolving around pointing out how to describe someone as, when they're being like arrogant and like cocky, smug, and being just some type of a little gangster. And when looking at a BC Housing where they seem to be backing each other up, but maybe if they seen what was going on, they wouldn't want to be a part of it. I don't know these people personally, but we're going to have to take all of them aside and find out exactly what psychology remains in their thinking minds, because to be aware of what you are doing and what you're saying and how violent a description of the damage report was, because it was basically describing a total renovation, like fire damage. And the worst part is when the date wasn't filled out right, it said 08/blank/ 2024, meaning that, what was that, day, month, year? Like that kind of seems subsequent. Leaving out the month would only say that they're planning to fill it in at another time, because after all, when we are looking at a damage report this ugly, and that they would not admit to what their motives were, especially when it was brought on when I was asking about the BC Housing investigation. And this had to do with how Alice got put in the psych ward, because her parents, as soon as we began looking into having her ring appraised, because we seen something online that it was a Renaissance ring. It was like $85,000. So, we better find out how much this is worth, because it seems to be one of the oldest, rarest things that could be made of gold. But since then, I've noticed that I was actually able to find one that looked identical to, but it makes me wonder if that's actually the ring itself. And I would like to look into reclaiming it because of the sentimental value behind it. But in order to do that, we might have to get some type of fiduciary to be able to cover the costs and make the replacements if they are given back. If they were only put into some type of holding where they were holding on to it, waiting for the statute of limitations to run out and then unload it, well, guess what? If they still have all our stuff, we'd greatly appreciate it back. And that would show some respect. And after all, because Alice herself was not evicted, she should